My wife told me she was going to carry her ex-boyfriend's baby at Cole Hendrick's ice fishing party, right there on the frozen pond with 25 people listening. The diesel heater roared behind us, wind whistled across the ice, sharp enough to sting. I smelled frozen minnows and diesel fuel and the beer someone spilled near my boots. "We have wonderful news," Linda said, her voice bright as Sunday bells. "I'm going to be a surrogate for Cole and Rose. They've tried for 6 years, and I want to help." The crowd erupted. Applause echoed across the ice. Rose, Cole's wife, a small woman with sad eyes, started crying and pulled Linda into a hug. Cole gripped my shoulder, his hand heavy and warm through my coat. "Your wife's an angel, Walt," he said. I watched Linda's face, watched her squeeze Cole's hand, brief, hidden behind Rose's shoulder, deliberate. Cole's soil pH tester sat on an overturned bait bucket beside him. He glanced across the frozen marsh toward the 80 acres my brother Carl left me, turned to the man beside him and said, "Expanding operations soon. Need more land." I saw her squeeze his hand. That's when I knew. The drive home was silent except for the heater rattling and the sound of Linda's thumbs tapping her phone screen. I kept my hands on the wheel, watched the road salt spray up from the tires. The truck cab smelled like wet wool and cold metal. "Rose really needed this," Linda said, not looking up. "She's been so broken about not having children." I didn't answer. My jaw ached from clenching it. "You could say something supportive," she added. "Who are you texting?" "Rose. She's still crying. Poor thing." I glanced at her phone. The screen said Cole. "That says Cole." Linda locked the screen, slipped the phone into her purse. "I meant Cole, about Rose. You know what I mean." I knew exactly what she meant. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom. I heard the door close, heard the lock click. In 6 years of marriage, she'd never locked that door. I stood in the kitchen for a while, listening to the refrigerator hum. Then I walked out to the workshop. The workshop still smelled like Carl, machine oil and sawdust and the cherry tobacco he used to smoke in his pipe. He'd been dead 5 years, but I hadn't changed much. His tools hung on their pegboards. His workbench sat covered in a thin layer of dust. In the corner, his old surveyor's transit sat on its tripod, the brass fittings dull in the weak light from the single bulb. I was looking for the property survey, the one that showed the boundary between my land and Linda's family's old place. The 80 acres Carl left me sat right adjacent to the parcel Linda's father used to own. Sold it years ago, but I wanted to see the lines. I found the survey in a drawer, found something else too, Carl's will, a copy he'd kept in a rusty filing cabinet under a stack of farm equipment manuals. I'd never read it carefully. My lawyer had handled everything when Carl died. I just knew he'd left me the 80 acres, free and clear, but there was a clause. 3rd page, 2nd paragraph. In the event that Walter Brennan dies without biological heirs, the aforementioned 80 acres shall revert to the family line of Linda Marie Brennan, née Kowalski, to be held in trust for her descendants. I read it 3 times. Carl had written that clause to keep the land in the family. He'd known Linda and I didn't have kids, known we'd tried early on, then stopped talking about it. He must have figured if I died childless, at least Linda's family could have it. Keep it from developers, keep it farmland. Linda knew about this clause. She'd been there when the will was read. She'd sat beside me in the lawyer's office and nodded while he explained it. That was 3 years ago. 3 years. I sat down on Carl's workbench stool. The wood was cold through my jeans. Outside, wind rattled the workshop door. I heard a branch scrape against the metal siding. If Linda had a biological child, even as a surrogate, that child would be her descendant, her family line. And if something happened to me, that child would inherit the land. Cole's child, Cole's blood. I thought about Cole at the party, his hand on my shoulder. Thought about him glancing at my land. Thought about his soil pH tester and his comment about expanding operations. Thought about Linda squeezing his hand. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda. "Coming to bed?" I texted back. "In a minute." But I didn't go in. I sat in that workshop until past midnight, holding Carl's will in my cold hands, listening to the wind howl through the bare trees. The heater in the workshop hadn't worked in 2 years. My breath came out in clouds. I thought about Carl, how he'd taught me to drive a tractor when I was 8, how he'd stood beside me at my wedding, clapped me on the back, whispered, "You got a good one, Walter." How he'd bought the land next to mine so we could farm together, even though he never married, never had kids of his own, to be held in trust for her descendants. Linda's phone had said Cole, not Rose, Cole. I stood up, my knees popped. I was 67 years old, and I was just now understanding what my wife had planned. I put the will back in the filing cabinet, locked it, slipped the key into my coat pocket, then I walked through the cold to the house. The porch light was off. Linda's bedroom light was off too. I went to the guest room, lay down on the narrow bed still wearing my coat, stared at the ceiling, and listened to the house settle and creak. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, I heard Linda get up, heard her walk to my bedroom, heard her try the guest room door. It was locked. She didn't knock, just stood there for a moment. Then I heard her walk back to bed. The will said biological heirs. I had none. Linda knew that. Cole knew that too. Sunday morning came cold and gray. I was up before dawn, made coffee in the kitchen while Linda slept. The coffee smelled burnt. I'd left the pot on too long. Through the window, I watched crows pick at the frozen ground where I used to keep the dairy herd. Linda came down at 7:30, already dressed for church. She wore her blue dress, the one she saved for special occasions. Her hair was perfect. She smelled like lavender soap. "We need to talk about yesterday," she said. "Yeah, we do." She poured herself coffee, added cream, stirred it slow. "I know you're upset, but this is a beautiful thing, Walt. I'm helping people I care about. You care about Cole. I care about Rose. She's been like a sister to me. You've known Rose for 3 months." Linda set her cup down hard. Coffee sloshed onto the counter. "You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference." She grabbed her purse. "I'm going to church. You can come or not. Your choice." I went. Don't know why. Maybe because, after 40 years of Sundays at Faith Lutheran, missing one felt like admitting defeat. The church basement smelled like old coffee and cinnamon rolls. After the service, everyone gathered for fellowship hour. Linda stood near the dessert table, surrounded by women from the quilting circle. They touched her arm, called her generous, called her brave. I stood by the coffee urn watching. Pastor Eugene approached, holding a glazed donut on a napkin. He was 68, bald as an egg, wearing his kind smile. "Walt, good to see you." "Pastor, big news about Linda. Must be proud." I looked at him. "Did you know about the will clause, the one Carl put in?" His smile faltered. "What clause?" "The one that says, if I die without biological heirs, Linda's descendants get the 80 acres. Pastor Eugene's face went careful. "I wasn't aware of the specifics." Across the room, Linda laughed at something one of the quilting ladies said. She glanced at me. Her smile disappeared. "If Linda has a biological child," I said, loud enough that the women near the dessert table could hear, "even as a surrogate, that child is her descendant. Means if something happens to me, that child, Cole's child, inherits my land." The basement went quiet. Even the coffee maker stopped gurgling. Linda walked over, her heels clicking on the linoleum. "Walt, not here." "Why not here? Everyone else knows about the surrogacy. Might as well know about the land, too. You're being paranoid." "Am I? You've known about that clause for 3 years. You never mentioned it when you offered to carry Cole's baby." One of the quilting ladies, Margaret Schultz, 70 years old and sharp as a tack, set down her coffee cup. "Linda, honey, is this true? About the land?" Linda's face went red. "It's not like that. The surrogacy has nothing to do with..." "With what?" I said. "With you and Cole? With the fact that he needs more land for his development plans? With the fact that you've been texting him since yesterday?" Margaret looked at Linda. So did Pastor Eugene. So did everyone else in the basement. "You're making me sound calculating and cruel," Linda said, her voice shaking. "I'm trying to help a couple have a baby. That's all this is." "Then why didn't you tell me first?" "Because I knew you'd react like this." Pastor Eugene raised his hands. "Folks, perhaps this is a conversation for private..." "No," Linda said. "Let them hear it. Yes, I knew about the clause. Yes, I know that technically a biological child of mine would be in the line of inheritance. But Walt, you're 67 years old and healthy. You're going to outlive me by 10 years. This isn't about land. It's about giving Cole and Rose the family they deserve." "Cole and Rose," I said. "Not just Rose. Cole." She opened her mouth, closed it. Around us, people shifted on their feet. Someone coughed. Margaret Schultz picked up her purse. "I think I'll head home." Half the room followed her. The other half stayed, their eyes moving between Linda and me like they were watching a tennis match. Pastor Eugene touched my shoulder. "Walt, perhaps this is private business." I looked at him. "She made it public when she announced it at Cole's party. Even so..." I walked out. Behind me, I heard Linda start to cry, heard women rush to comfort her, heard Pastor Eugene say something soft and pastoral. Outside, the parking lot was covered in patchy ice. Salt crunched under my boots. The sky was the color of old dishwater. My truck wouldn't start at first. The engine turned over 3 times before it caught. I sat there with my hands on the wheel, watching people leave the church. Watching them look at me through their windshields. My phone buzzed. Text from Tom Harris at Countryside Credit Union. Walt, need to talk about your equipment loan renewal. Can you come by Tuesday? I stared at the message. The loan renewal was supposed to be automatic. I'd banked with Tom for 30 years, never missed a payment. I texted back, "What's the issue?" His response came fast. "Just need to discuss some things. Family stability review, standard procedure, family stability review." There was no such thing, not for a farm equipment loan, not for a man who'd paid his bills on time for 40 years. I looked back at the church. Linda stood in the doorway talking to Pastor Eugene. She saw me watching, turned away. Tom Harris went to Faith Lutheran, so did half the loan committee at Countryside Credit Union. Linda had told them her side first. Tuesday morning, I drove to the credit union. The roads were slick with black ice. I passed the Hendricks place on the way, 12 acres of pristine white fencing and a red barn that looked like it belonged on a Christmas card. Cole's truck sat in the driveway. So did Linda's sedan. I kept driving. Tom Harris's office smelled like burnt coffee and air freshener trying to cover it. He sat behind his desk, a man my age with liver spots on his hands and reading glasses hanging from a chain. We'd gone to school together. His kid and Carl's kid, before Carl's boy died in Iraq, used to play Little League on the same team. Walt. He didn't stand up, didn't shake my hand. I sat down. "What's this about, Tom?" He shuffled papers on his desk, wouldn't meet my eyes. "The loan committee has some concerns about your farm operations, about stability. I've never missed a payment. It's not about payments. It's about the situation with Linda. The situation, the separation, the stress. We need to make sure the farm operations remain viable during periods of marital instability." I leaned back in the plastic chair. It creaked. "Linda's been talking to you." "Linda's been a valued member of this community for a long time. People are concerned about how you're handling things." "How I'm handling things?" Tom finally looked at me. "She's trying to do something good, Walt. Help a couple who can't have kids. And you're making it about money and land, and it is about land. You know about Carl's will?" His face went careful. "I know some of the details." "Then you know that if Linda has a biological child, even as a surrogate, that child stands to inherit my 80 acres if I die. You also know Cole Hendricks has been trying to expand his operations. You also know he's been telling people he needs more land." Tom was quiet for a moment. Outside, I heard someone using the ATM, heard the machine beep and whir. "The loan committee meets Thursday," Tom said. "We'll make a decision then." 30 years, Tom. I've banked here 30 years. "And we appreciate your business, but we have to consider all factors." I stood up. My knees popped. "Who's on the committee?" "That's confidential." "Margaret Schultz, still on it?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Margaret had been at church Sunday, had seen the whole thing. "Tell the committee I'll be just fine," I said. I said, "With or without Linda." I left before he could respond. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck with the engine running, watching my breath fog the windshield. The heater wheezed. Through the credit union window, I could see Tom on his phone. Probably calling someone. Probably calling Linda. My phone rang. Darius Webb, my brother-in-law, married to Carl's widow Violet until she remarried. Darius was 71, built like a fence post, and the best land surveyor in Dunn County. "Walt, heard about Sunday. Word travels. It's a small town. Want some company?" "I'm fine." "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked if you wanted company." 20 minutes later, we sat in my kitchen. Darius had brought a casserole from his new wife. He set it on the counter, didn't say anything about it, just sat down across from me and drank the coffee I poured. We sat for an hour, didn't talk, just sat while the refrigerator hummed and the wind rattled the windows. Outside, gray clouds rolled in from the west, heavy with snow. Finally, Darius spoke. "Carl worried about this." "About what?" "About the land. About what would happen if you and Linda didn't have kids." He turned his coffee mug in his hands. "He asked me about it when he was writing the will, asked if he should put in a clause about Linda's line, or just leave it to you outright. I told him to do what felt right. He wanted to keep it in the family. He wanted to keep it from developers. There's a difference." Darius looked at me. You think Linda's planning something? I know she is. Her and Cole both. You got proof? Just instinct. Darius nodded slowly. He understood instinct. A surveyor's whole job was reading land, reading lines, reading what wasn't visible on the surface. Carl's old transit's still in your workshop, he said. Yeah. Mind if I use it? For what? To check the property lines. See if everything's where it should be. He stood up, carried his mug to the sink, rinsed it, set it in the drainer. Carl would have wanted that, making sure the truth's where it belongs. Something loosened in my chest. Not much, just enough to breathe a little easier. Transit's in the corner, I said. Hasn't been used in 5 years. I'll clean it up. Check the calibration. He pulled on his coat. At the door, he paused. Walt, you're not alone in this. After he left, I stood at the kitchen window watching snow start to fall, light at first, then heavier. The fields disappeared behind white curtains. The wind picked up, howling around the eaves. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda. Can we please talk? I didn't answer. An hour later, she texted again. I'm staying at Cole & Rose's for a few days, just until things calm down. I looked at the message for a long time, then I deleted it. That night, I went out to the workshop. Darius had been there. Carl's Transit sat on the workbench, cleaned and polished. The brass fittings gleamed in the light. Next to it, Darius had left a note on a scrap of paper. Let's see what truth looks like. I picked up the Transit. It was heavier than I remembered. Cold brass and old glass and the weight of 100 accurate measurements. Carl used to say a surveyor's job was to find the truth in the land. No lies, no guessing, just mathematics and careful looking. Outside, the snow fell harder. I heard it hiss against the metal siding. Somewhere out there, Cole was planning something. Linda was helping him, and the land Carl trusted me with was sitting in the middle of it all. But now I had Darius, and Darius had Carl's Transit. Truth had a way of showing up when you measured carefully enough. The snow kept falling for 3 days. By Friday, everything was white and silent. I spent most of the time in the workshop, going through Carl's old files, found receipts for fence posts, found tax records, found a map he'd drawn of the property line between my land and the old Kowalski place, Linda's father's land before he sold it 15 years ago. The line ran straight north-south, marked by a drainage ditch and a row of black walnut trees Carl had planted in 1987. Simple, clear, no disputes. On Saturday, the snow stopped. Sun came out weak and pale. I was in the barn checking the tractor, even though I didn't need it, even though the fields were rented out, when I heard a truck pull into the driveway. Cole's truck. Black Ford F-250, lifted suspension, chrome everywhere. The engine ticked as it cooled. I stayed in the barn, watching through the gap in the door. Cole got out wearing Carhartt overalls and work boots that looked like they'd never seen mud. He had something in his hand. His soil pH tester. The same one from the ice fishing party. He walked toward the barn, stopped when he saw me in the doorway. Walt, didn't see you there. It's my barn. He smiled. Same smile he'd given me at the party. Confident. Practiced. Just wanted to check on you. Linda's worried. Linda's staying at your place. Rose insisted. You know how women are. He glanced past me toward the fields. Property looking good, even under snow. What do you want, Cole? Just being neighborly. He walked past me uninvited, into the barn, looked around at the empty stalls, the unused equipment. Shame to see a place like this sitting idle. In the old days, this barn would have been full of cattle. In the old days, I had help running it. Linda mentioned Carl left you some land, 80 acres adjacent to where her father's place used to be. There it was, not even trying to hide it. That's right, Cole nodded like we were discussing weather. Good land. I drove past it yesterday. Soil looks prime, could support a lot more than what you're doing with it. I'm not doing anything with it. Renting it out to the Jorgensen kid. Exactly. Cole smiled again. Waste of potential. Land like that, with the right investment, could support 20 homes, maybe more. Good access to the county road, close to town. Families would love it. I watched him. Watched the way his eyes moved over my property like he was already measuring it, like he was already drawing subdivision lines in his head. I'm not selling, I said. I'm not asking you to, just making conversation. He walked to the barn door, looked out at the white fields. Then he did something strange. He knelt down, pulled out his soil pH tester, and pressed it into the snow-covered ground just outside the barn. What are you doing? Just curious about the composition. I'm an agribusiness consultant. Old habits. He checked the reading, wrote something in a small notebook he pulled from his pocket. Interesting. pH is 6.8. Perfect for development. He was 6 feet past the property line, 6 feet into my land. I watched him take another sample, then another, moving in a line toward the drainage ditch that marked the boundary between my 80 acres and the land beyond. Cole. He looked up, still smiling. Yeah? You're on my property. Am I? Hard to tell with the snow. The drainage ditch is the line. You're past it. He stood up, brushed snow off his knees. My mistake. Sorry about that. But he didn't look sorry. He looked satisfied, like he'd gotten exactly what he came for. He walked back to his truck, stopped before getting in. Linda wants you to call her. She misses you. Then why is she staying at your place? Because you're making this harder than it needs to be. His voice changed, got colder. She's trying to help Rose and me. All you have to do is support her. That's what husbands do. That's what you think husbands do? I think good men support their wives, even when they don't understand. He climbed into his truck, started the engine, rolled down the window. Think about it, Walt. Linda's doing a beautiful thing. Don't ruin it because you're insecure. He drove off, tires spitting snow. I stood there for a long time, staring at the spots where he'd taken soil samples, 3 distinct marks in the snow, all of them on my side of the drainage ditch. I called Darius. He came over that afternoon with his equipment. We walked the property line together, following the drainage ditch and the walnut trees. The snow was knee-deep in places, my boots filled with ice water. The cold bit through my jeans. There, I said, pointing to the marks Cole had left. He took samples, 3 of them. Darius knelt down, examined the disturbed snow. Recent. This morning, maybe? About an hour ago. Darius pulled out a tape measure, extended it from the drainage ditch to the closest sample mark. 6 feet, 2 inches. He was definitely on your land. Why would he do that? Darius stood up slowly, his knees creaking. He looked at the sample marks, then at the land beyond, then back at me. He's planning something. Testing soil composition for building, checking drainage. You don't do that unless you're serious about development. But it's my land. Not if something happens to you, then it's Linda's descendants' land. Darius pulled off his glove, rubbed his jaw. His fingers were red from cold. Walt, when did Linda offer to be Cole's surrogate? Month ago, late December. And when did Cole start talking about expanding his operations? I thought back to the ice fishing party. Same day, Linda made the announcement. Darius was quiet for a moment. Wind blew across the field, lifting snow in thin white sheets. In the distance, a crow cawed. I want to resurvey this whole boundary, Darius said. With Carl's Transit, get precise measurements, document everything. You think Cole's been out here before? I think Cole's been planning this longer than a month. We walked back to the house. My boots squelched with melted snow. Inside, Darius made coffee while I peeled off my wet socks. The kitchen smelled like propane and something burning. I'd left a pot on the stove too long again. Darius set a mug in front of me. I'm going to need a few days, maybe a week. Need to check county records too, see if Cole's filed for any permits or development applications. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He sat down across from me. Walt, if I find something, if Cole's been trespassing or planning development on your land, this gets ugly. Legal ugly. You ready for that? I thought about Linda at Cole's house. Thought about the credit union loan committee meeting Thursday. Thought about half the church thinking I was the cruel one. I'm ready. Good. Darius stood up. I'll start Monday. Weather should clear by then. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table watching the sunset. The sky turned pink and orange behind the barn. Beautiful. Empty. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Brennan, this is Tom Harris. The loan committee met this afternoon. My stomach dropped. On Saturday? Emergency session. I'm sorry, Walt. The loan renewal has been denied. The kitchen tilted. What? Based on current marital instability and questions about farm operation viability, we can't approve the equipment loan at this time. You can reapply in 6 months pending. I hung up. No loan meant no equipment. No equipment meant I couldn't rent it out the fields next planting season. No rental income meant I couldn't pay property taxes on time. No taxes meant... I looked out the window at the 80 acres, at the land Carl had trusted me with. Without that loan, I'd lose the farm in 2 years. Maybe less. Linda knew that. Cole knew that too. Sunday, I didn't go to church. Couldn't face it. Sat in the kitchen, drinking coffee that had gone cold, staring at the phone Tom Harris had called from. Outside, the world was white and still. No wind, just silence and snow and the weight of everything pressing down. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Text from Rose Hendricks. Piano bench broke at church. Pastor said you're good with repairs. Can you help? I almost said no. Almost deleted the message and went back to staring at nothing. But Rose hadn't done anything wrong. Rose was just a woman who wanted a baby and got tangled up in whatever Linda and Cole were planning. I texted back, I'll be there after service ends. The church parking lot was nearly empty when I arrived. My truck tires crunched on packed snow. Through the basement windows I could see people cleaning up from fellowship hour, saw Linda's blue dress, saw her laugh at something someone said. I went around back, used the side entrance. Rose was in the choir room, sitting on the broken piano bench. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with dark hair going gray at the temples. She wore a brown dress and had her hands folded in her lap like she was praying. Mr. Brennan, thank you for coming. The bench had split down the middle, where someone heavy had sat. Easy fix, just needed wood glue and clamps. I'll need to take it to my workshop, I said. Have it back to you by Wednesday. That would be wonderful. She stood up, smoothed her dress. I heard about the loan. I'm sorry. I looked at her. She met my eyes. No judgment there, just sadness. Not your fault, I said. Isn't it? Her voice cracked. If Cole and I hadn't asked Linda to help, none of this would be happening. You didn't ask, Linda offered. Because I cried in front of her at Whole Foods. Because I told her we'd been trying for 6 years. Because I'm broken and can't give my husband children, she wiped her eyes. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. I picked up the bench. It was lighter than I expected. Rose, this isn't your fault. Cole says you're being unreasonable. Says you're making Linda choose between you and us. She twisted her hands together. But I don't think that's true. I think something else is happening, something he's not telling me. The way she said it made me stop, set the bench down. What makes you say that? She looked toward the door, looked back at me, lowered her voice. He's been acting strange, secretive, taking phone calls in the garage, coming home late and saying he was meeting with potential clients, but his truck smells like cold air and dirt, not offices. How long? 2 years, maybe more. She wrapped her arms around herself. I thought maybe he was having an affair, but then Linda offered to be our surrogate, and Cole was so happy. I thought maybe that's all it was, stress about not having children. But now, well, now what? Now he's obsessed with your land, drives past it, mentions it at dinner, talks about development potential and property values. She looked at me. Mr. Brennan, I don't think the surrogacy is about giving us a baby. I think it's about something else. We stood there in the choir room, surrounded by hymnals and music stands. I could hear voices in the basement. Heard someone laugh. Heard dishes clinking. Rose, does Cole know you're talking to me? No, he thinks I'm at the store. If he asks, I'll tell him the piano bench broke and you're fixing it, that's all. She picked up her purse. I'm not stupid, Mr. Brennan. I know my husband, I know when he's planning something, and I know it's not good. After she left, I carried the bench to my truck. The parking lot was emptying out. People walked to their cars in small groups, heads down against the cold. I saw Linda come out with Margaret Schultz, saw them hug, saw Linda get into her car, not Cole's truck, her own sedan, and drive off alone. Back home, I set the bench on the workshop table. The split was clean, would glue up nice. While the glue set, I could clamp it, let it cure overnight. Simple repair, honest work. I thought about Rose saying Cole had been strange for 2 years. Thought about him taking soil samples yesterday. Thought about him mentioning development potential like he already owned the land. 2 years ago was right after Carl died, right after I inherited the 80 acres. I pulled out my phone, called Darius. Can you check county records going back 2 years? See if Cole filed anything, permits, applications, inquiries about my land. I can do that. Why 2 years? Just a feeling? Darius was quiet for a moment. I'll go first thing Monday morning. County office opens at 8. After we hung up, I glued the piano bench, applied the clamps, wiped off the excess glue with a rag. The workshop smelled like wood and adhesive and machine oil. Through the window, I watched the sunset behind the barn. Sky went purple, then black. My phone buzzed. Text from Rose. Thank you for not telling him. I texted back, thank you for telling me. Then I turned off the lights and went inside, made soup from a can, Ate it standing at the counter, washed the bowl and put it away. The house was too quiet, too empty. Used to be I'd hear Linda in the next room, hear her humming while she folded laundry or talking on the phone to her sister. Now there was just the refrigerator hum and the heater clicking on and off. I sat in Carl's old recliner. It still smelled like him, still had the worn spot where his elbow used to rest. Outside, it started snowing again. Small flakes at first, then larger. The wind picked up, rattling the windows. Somewhere across town, Linda was sleeping at Cole's house. In a guest room, probably, or maybe not. Somewhere in the county clerk's office, there were records of what Cole had been planning for 2 years. And somewhere in my workshop, Carl's transit waited to measure the truth. Monday morning, Darius called at 7:30. I was already up, drinking coffee, watching the sun turn the snowfields gold. "Walt, you need to sit down." I sat. Cole filed a development LLC 2 years ago, January 14th, called it Hendricks Land Development, filed it 3 weeks after Carl's funeral. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. "There's more," Darius said. He submitted preliminary inquiries to the county about subdivision permits for parcels matching the exact dimensions of your 80 acres. Never followed through with formal applications, but the inquiries are on record. When? First one was 2 years ago. Last one was December 20th, 2 weeks before Linda announced the surrogacy. I set down my coffee mug. My hand was shaking. He's been planning this since Carl died. Looks that way. I'm getting copies of everything. Should have them by this afternoon. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Watched the clock tick. Watched the sun climb higher. The snow outside was melting in spots, revealing brown grass underneath. 2 years. Cole had been planning this for 2 years, which meant Linda had been lying for just as long. Around 10, I heard a vehicle pull into the driveway. Not Cole's truck this time. Pastor Eugene's Buick. He got out wearing his black coat and his sympathetic face. I met him on the porch. "Pastor, Walt, can we talk?" "About what?" "About Sunday, about how you're handling this situation with Linda." He climbed the porch steps, stamped snow off his boots. "Can I come in?" I didn't move. "Say what you need to say out here." He sighed, looked at his boots. "Some members of the congregation are concerned about your hardness. Linda is trying to do something generous, and you're making it about money and property and... Did you know Cole filed a development company 2 years ago, right after Carl died?" Pastor Eugene blinked. "I don't see how that's relevant to... Did you know he's been submitting inquiries to the county about subdividing my land, the land Carl left me?" "Walt, I think you're seeing conspiracies where there are none. Cole is a businessman. He probably files all kinds of things. He took soil samples on my property Saturday, 6 feet past the property line, trespassing." Pastor Eugene's face went careful. "Perhaps there was confusion about the boundary. The snow makes it hard to..." "There's no confusion. The drainage ditch marks the line. Always has. Cole knew exactly what he was doing." The pastor was quiet for a moment. Wind rattled the porch rafters. Somewhere down the road, a dog barked. "Even if that's true," he said finally, "it doesn't change the fact that Linda is trying to help a couple have a child. That's a beautiful, Christian act of service. And you're punishing her for it." "I'm protecting myself from it. By freezing her out? By turning half the congregation against her?" He shook his head. "Walt, I've known you for 40 years. This isn't who you are. Maybe you don't know me as well as you think." I went inside, closed the door, stood there listening to Pastor Eugene's footsteps fade down the porch steps, heard his Buick start up and drive away. Through the window, I watched his taillights disappear down the county road. Then I called Darius back. "Can you come over? Bring the transit. I want to resurvey the whole boundary." "Already planned on it. Give me an hour." He showed up with Carl's transit cleaned and calibrated, his measuring equipment, and a thermos of coffee his wife had sent. We walked the property line together, him setting up the transit every 100 feet, me holding the leveling rod while he took readings. The sun was warm for late February. Snow dripped from tree branches. The drainage ditch was starting to flow with meltwater. Mud sucked at our boots. "There," Darius said, pointing to a spot about 200 yards from where Cole had taken samples Saturday. "See those stakes?" I looked. Barely visible in the melting snow were 4 wooden stakes, the kind surveyors use. They formed a rough square, about 20 feet on each side, all of them on my side of the drainage ditch. Darius walked over, knelt down, pulled one of the stakes up. It had markings on it, numbers, dates. "These are survey stakes," he said. "Professional grade." He turned it over in his hands. This one's dated August. Last August. Cole's been out here since August? Longer. Darius walked to the other stakes, pulled them up one by one. This one's from June. This one's from April. This one's from February, a year ago. A year. Cole had been trespassing on my land for a year, marking it, measuring it, planning to develop it like it was already his. Darius set up the transit, took more readings, made notes in a field book. His face was grim. Walt, I found something else at the county office. Cole filed a request last month to have county water lines extended past your property. Said it was for future rural development needs. Can he do that? He can request it, but it only makes sense if he's planning to build. You don't extend water lines for farmland. Darius packed up the transit. I'm taking these stakes as evidence, along with the soil samples you saw him take. We can prove trespassing. We can prove intent. Intent for what? For development, for taking your land one way or another. He looked at me. Walt, this isn't just about Linda carrying a baby. This is about Cole getting access to 80 acres he can't buy, and he's using your wife to do it. We walked back to the house in silence. The mud was thick now, clinging to our boots in heavy clumps. Behind us, our footprints filled with water. At the truck, Darius loaded the transit carefully. I'll file a trespassing report with the county sheriff. Probably won't amount to much, but it's on record. And I'll document everything we found today. What do I do now? You wait, and you get ready. Because when Linda finds out we have evidence, this gets worse before it gets better. He drove off, leaving me standing in the driveway. The sun was setting again. Days were getting longer, but not fast enough. My phone buzzed. Text from Tom Harris. Hearing scheduled for April 14th regarding loan reconsideration. You're required to attend. April 14th. 6 weeks away. 6 weeks to prove I wasn't crazy. 6 weeks to prove Linda and Cole were planning something. 6 weeks to save the land Carl trusted me with. Inside, the house was cold. I turned up the heat, made dinner from leftovers, sat at the table alone. Through the window, I could see the 80 acres in the fading light, could see the walnut trees Carl planted, could see the drainage ditch running straight and true. Cole's stakes were gone now. Darius had them. Evidence of trespassing, evidence of planning, evidence of intent, but evidence wasn't enough. Not in a small town where half the people thought I was the villain. I needed more than evidence. I needed the truth to be so clear that nobody could look away. March came in with rain, cold rain that turned the snow to slush and the fields to mud. Water dripped from the eaves in a steady rhythm. The workshop roof leaked in 2 places. I set out buckets to catch it, listened to the ping-ping-ping of drops hitting metal. I couldn't sleep, hadn't slept right in weeks. Lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain, thinking about Linda, thinking about the way she used to hold my hand after my heart surgery 3 years ago. How she'd sat beside the hospital bed for 2 days straight, wouldn't go home even when the nurses told her to. How she'd said, "We're a team, Walt," and meant it. Or I thought she'd meant it. Maybe she had meant it then. Maybe something changed. Maybe Cole came back into her life, and old feelings came rushing back, and she convinced herself she could have both, her marriage and whatever she had with him. Or maybe I'd been a fool from the start. Around 2 in the morning, I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the wedding photo Linda had left behind. We looked young in it, happy. I had more hair. She had fewer lines around her eyes. We were standing in front of Faith Lutheran, holding hands, smiling like we knew something the rest of the world didn't. I almost called her, picked up the phone twice, set it down twice. Because what would I say? I still love you, but you're destroying me. Come home, and we'll pretend none of this happened. She'd made her choice. Moved into Cole's house, been living there for 6 weeks now. If she wanted to come home, she would have. I heard a truck outside, Cole's F-250. The engine idled in my driveway for a long moment, then drove past slow, checking on the land again. Midnight, and he was checking my land. I put the wedding photo in a drawer, went back to bed, didn't sleep. By morning, the rain had stopped. The world looked gray and tired. I walked out to the barn, checked the fence lines out of habit, found fresh tire tracks in the mud near the drainage ditch. Cole's truck again. He'd been out here during the night, driving along the property line. My phone rang. Violet, Carl's widow. I hadn't talked to her in 2 years, not since she remarried and moved to Madison. Walt, Darius called me, told me what's happening. Yeah. He said Cole tried to buy the land from you, that he's been trespassing. That's right. She was quiet for a moment. I heard traffic in the background. City sounds. Walt, I need to tell you something I should have told you 2 years ago. I sat down on the porch steps. The wood was wet, cold soaked through my jeans. Cole approached me 3 weeks after Carl's funeral, Violet said. Showed up at the house with flowers and sympathy and an offer. Said he'd buy the 80 acres for $200,000, but only if you died without heirs. Said he knew about the will clause. Said he'd handle all the paperwork, make it easy for me. My stomach dropped. What did you say? I told him to get off my property, told him Carl left that land to you for a reason, and I wasn't going to help him steal it. She paused. He said, there are other ways. Those exact words. There are other ways. 2 years ago, right after Carl died, before Linda even reconnected with Cole and Rose. He's been planning this since the beginning, I said. Yes. And Walt, I should have told you, I should have warned you, but I thought maybe he was just being opportunistic. I didn't think he'd actually do something. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I should have protected Carl's legacy. That land was everything to him, and now it's not lost yet, I said. Violet, would you be willing to testify to this? At the credit union hearing? When is it? April 14th. I'll be there. I'll tell them everything. She took a shaky breath. Carl would have wanted that. He trusted you with that land, Walt. He knew you'd protect it. After we hung up, I sat on the porch for a long time. Watched the clouds break apart. Watched weak sunlight filter through. The fields were brown and wet, but here and there I could see tiny green shoots pushing through. Spring coming whether anyone was ready or not. My phone buzzed. Email from Tom Harris with the official hearing notice. Countryside Credit Union Loan Review Hearing. April 14th, 2:00 p.m. Attendees, Walter Brennan, Tom Harris. Loan Committee, 8 members. Optional witnesses may be called. I forwarded it to Darius. He called back immediately. I'll be there. And Violet? She's coming from Madison. She'll testify about Cole's offer. Good. We'll need her. He paused. Walt, I finished documenting the trespassing. Got photos of the stakes, the tire tracks, everything. Sheriff took my report but said without actual property damage, there's not much he can do. It's a civil matter, and so Cole gets away with it. For now. But at the hearing, we can present everything. The stakes, the LLC filing, the waterline requests, Violet's testimony. Make them see what's really happening. You think it'll be enough? I think truth is truth. Whether people want to see it is another question. That night, I fixed Rose's piano bench. The glue had cured perfectly. The split was invisible. Just needed sanding and a coat of varnish. I worked in the shop while rain started up again, gentle this time. The sound on the metal roof was almost peaceful. I thought about Rose saying Cole had been secretive for 2 years. Thought about Violet saying there are other ways. Thought about Linda squeezing Cole's hand at the ice fishing party. How long had they been planning this together? How long had Linda known what Cole really wanted? Or maybe she didn't know. Maybe she thought she was really helping Rose, and Cole was using her just like he was using everyone else. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe my wife wasn't cruel, just foolish, just caught up in something she didn't understand. But she'd lived in his house for 6 weeks. She'd seen how obsessed he was with my land. She had to know by now, and she'd stayed anyway. I finished the bench around midnight, set it aside to dry, turned off the workshop lights, walked back to the house through cold rain. The hearing was 5 weeks away, 5 weeks to prepare, 5 weeks to gather every piece of evidence, 5 weeks to get ready for whatever came next. I looked at the wedding photo one more time before I put it back in the drawer. We looked so young, so sure. I wondered if that Walt would recognize the man I'd become. The man who measured property lines and documented trespassing and prepared for battle instead of trying to save his marriage. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe that Walt was gone, buried under the same snow that was finally melting. Or maybe he'd just been naive. Maybe this Walt, the one who saw truth even when it hurt, was who I should have been all along. April 14th came with pale sunshine and the smell of wet earth. The fields were turning green. Darius picked me up at 1:30. We drove to the credit union in silence, the transit sitting in the back seat like a third passenger. You ready? He asked when we pulled into the parking lot. No. Good. Means you're taking it seriously. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Long table, plastic chairs, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Tom Harris sat at the head with a manila folder in front of him. 8 loan committee members lined the sides. I recognized most of them. Margaret Schultz, Pastor Eugene, Randy Dietrich from the hardware store, people I'd known for 40 years, Linda sat near the back with Cole. She wore her blue dress again. Cole wore a suit that looked too expensive for Dunn County. Rose wasn't there. Darius and I took seats across from them. I set the folder with our evidence on the table. Darius set up a small easel with the survey photos. Tom Harris cleared his throat. This hearing is to review Walter Brennan's equipment loan application, which was denied last month due to concerns about farm operational stability. Mr. Brennan, you've requested an opportunity to present additional information. I have. I stood up. My knees creaked. I want to show why the loan was really denied, and it wasn't about farm operations. I nodded to Darius. He put up the first photo, the survey stakes we'd found. These are professional survey stakes, I said. We found them on my property in February. They're dated going back a year. Someone's been trespassing on my land, measuring it, planning something. Cole shifted in his seat. Linda looked at him, then at me. Darius put up the next photo, the soil sample marks from March. These are from soil pH tests, taken 6 feet past my property line. I witnessed Cole Hendricks taking these samples personally. That was a mistake, Cole said, his voice smooth. I apologize for crossing the line. The snow made it difficult to... There was no snow in August, I said, or June, or April of last year. All dates on your survey stakes. The room went quiet. Margaret Schultz leaned forward, squinting at the photos. Darius put up a document. This is Cole Hendricks's LLC filing. Hendricks Land Development, filed 3 weeks after Carl Brennan's funeral, 2 years ago. Linda's face went pale. She looked at Cole. He wouldn't meet her eyes. And this, Darius continued, putting up another document, is a county record of subdivision inquiries for a parcel matching the exact dimensions of Walt's 80 acres. First inquiry filed 2 years ago. Last inquiry filed December 20th, 2 weeks before Linda announced the surrogacy. Pastor Eugene set down his pen. Cole, is this true? I'm a land development consultant. I file inquiries all the time. It's part of my job. For land you don't own, Randy Dietrich said. I was exploring options. There's nothing illegal about that. There is, when you're trespassing to do it, Darius said. Tom Harris looked uncomfortable. I'm not sure how this relates to Mr. Brennan's loan application. It relates because someone on this committee convinced you to deny my loan, I said. Someone who wanted me financially unstable. Someone who benefits if I can't afford to keep the land. I looked at Linda. She stared at the table. My brother Carl left me 80 acres with a clause in his will. If I die without biological heirs, the land goes to Linda's descendants. Linda knows this. Cole knows this. And if Linda has a biological child, even as a surrogate, that child is her descendant. Margaret Schultz's mouth fell open. Linda, you offered to carry Cole's baby knowing about this clause? It's not, Linda's voice cracked. It's not about the land. It's about helping Rose and Cole have a family. Then why did Cole file a development company the same month he learned about the will? Darius asked. Why has he been taking soil samples and planting survey stakes and requesting water line extensions for my brother-in-law's property? Cole stood up. This is ridiculous. You're making connections that don't exist. I'm a businessman. I explore opportunities. That's all this is. Then, explain the survey stakes, I said. I already told you. Explain why you approached Violet 2 years ago, offering to buy the land, but only if I died without heirs. The room froze. Every head turned toward Cole. Linda stood up. What? There's a letter, Tom Harris said quietly. He pulled a document from his folder. From Violet Brennan. She couldn't attend today, but she submitted written testimony. He read it aloud. His voice echoed in the small room. Cole Hendricks approached me 3 weeks after my husband Carl's funeral. He offered $200,000 for the 80 acres Carl left to Walter, with the condition that Walter die without biological heirs. When I refused, he said, there are other ways. I believe he was planning even then to manipulate the inheritance clause through Linda. Linda grabbed her purse. I need air. She walked to the door. Cole followed. Linda, wait. She spun around. You knew? You knew about the clause before you asked me to be your surrogate. It's not what you think. 2 years, Cole. You've been planning this for 2 years. Her voice broke. Was any of it real? Did you ever care about Rose having a baby, or was I just a way to get Walt's land? Rose. The name hung in the air. I looked at the empty chair where she should have been sitting. "Where is Rose?" Margaret Schultz asked. Cole's face went red. "She's at home. She wasn't feeling well." "She left you," Linda whispered. "Didn't she?" Cole grabbed his coat. "This hearing is a waste of time. Walt's just paranoid, and—" "Get out," Tom Harris said. "What?" "Get out of this hearing. You've lied to this committee, to this community, and apparently to your own wife." Tom stood up. "The loan renewal is approved. Walt Brennan has full operational stability, and this committee was wrong to question it." Cole looked around the room. Every face stared back at him with disgust or pity, or both. He grabbed his briefcase and left, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Linda stood in the doorway. She looked at me. Her eyes were red. "Walt, I didn't know. About Violet? About the 2 years of planning? I thought—" She wiped her face. "I thought I was helping Rose." "Were you?" I asked. "Or were you helping Cole?" She didn't answer, just turned and walked out. The committee members sat in stunned silence. Pastor Eugene spoke first. "Walt, I owe you an apology." "We all do," Margaret said. Tom Harris slid the loan approval across the table. "I'm sorry, Walt. We should have trusted you." I signed the paperwork. My hand didn't shake. Outside, Darius loaded the transit back into his truck. The sun was warm on my neck, first real warmth I'd felt in months. Across the parking lot, I saw Linda sitting in her car. She wasn't leaving, just sitting there with her hands on the wheel. Darius followed my gaze. "You gonna talk to her?" "Not today." "You still love her." "Doesn't matter anymore." We drove home in silence. The fields were green now. The Jorgensen kid had started planting. I could see the tractor working in neat rows, back and forth, back and forth. At the house, Darius helped me unload the transit, set it back in the workshop on its tripod. "Carl would be proud," he said. "Carl would be disappointed it came to this." "Maybe, but he'd be proud you fought for what he gave you." After Darius left, I walked the property line. The drainage ditch ran full with spring melt. The walnut trees were budding. In a few weeks, they'd be covered in green leaves. Cole's survey stakes were gone. His tire tracks had washed away in the rain. The only evidence he'd ever been here was in the folder Darius had assembled. Documentation of greed and planning and betrayal. But the land was still mine, still safe. I planted an oak sapling that evening, right on Carl's grave in the small family plot behind the barn. The hole was easy to dig. The soil was soft and dark and smelled like promise. The tree was 3 feet tall. By the time it matured, I'd be long gone. But it would grow, and the land would stay. 2 weeks after the hearing, I got a text from Rose. "Can you bring the piano bench by? I'm back at the house." Cole moved out. I drove over on a Saturday morning. The Hendricks place looked different in daylight without snow. The white fencing needed paint. The showcase barn had a loose door that banged in the wind. Up close, you could see it was all surface. Pretty from a distance, falling apart when you looked carefully. Rose answered the door in jeans and a faded sweatshirt. Her eyes were puffy but clear. "Thank you for fixing it," she said, running her hand over the bench. "Looks like it was never broken. Good glue and patience, that's all it takes." She made coffee. We sat at her kitchen table, a farmhouse table that probably cost more than my truck. Through the window, I could see the pond where Linda had announced the surrogacy 4 months ago. The ice was gone. Ducks floated on the surface. "I heard what happened at the hearing," Rose said. "Linda called me. Told me everything." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I needed to know." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "Cole told me the surrogacy was about us having a baby, about giving us a family, but it was never about that. It was about your land. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there. The secretiveness, the obsession with property values, the way he talked about your farm like he already owned it." She looked at me. "Did you know Linda left him?" "I heard. She's staying at a hotel in town. Said she can't go back to your place, too ashamed." I didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. Rose stood up, walked to the window. "I filed for divorce yesterday. My lawyer says Cole's been hiding money, setting up accounts I didn't know about, planning for the development project like it was guaranteed." She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "He spent $50,000 on preliminary architectural drawings. For your land he doesn't own and never will. I'm sorry it ended this way. I'm not. Better to know now than waste another 6 years trying to fix something that was already broken." She turned to face me. "Mr. Brennan, can I ask you something?" "Walt. Walt, do you think Linda knew about Cole's real plan?" I thought about it. About Linda squeezing Cole's hand at the party, about her moving into his house, about her staying there for 6 weeks while he drove past my property at midnight. I think she wanted to believe she was helping you, I said finally. I think Cole told her it was about giving you a baby, and she convinced herself that was enough, that the land thing was just a coincidence. But she knew about the will clause. Yeah, she knew. Rose nodded slowly. That's what I thought too. She wanted both things, wanted to help Cole and help you, and somehow not see how those things conflicted. She sat back down. I got a letter from her yesterday. She asked me to forgive her, said she never meant to hurt me. What did you write back? I didn't. Not yet. Rose looked at her coffee. Part of me wants to forgive her. She was manipulated too, just like I was. But part of me thinks she chose to be manipulated. That's different, isn't it? Choosing to not see what's right in front of you. Yeah, that's different. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the ducks took flight, their wings beating against the water. The sound echoed across the pond. Are you going to talk to her? Rose asked. Linda? I don't know. For what it's worth, I think she loves you. I think she made a terrible choice and now she doesn't know how to fix it. Rose smiled sadly. But that's not your problem to solve, is it? No, it's not. I left Rose's place around noon, drove past the hotel where Linda was staying, saw her car in the parking lot, kept driving. At home, I changed into work clothes, spent the afternoon fixing fence posts that didn't really need fixing, just needed to move, to work, to feel useful. Around 5, I heard a car in the driveway. Linda's sedan. My stomach tightened. She got out slowly, like she wasn't sure she should be there. Wore jeans and a plain shirt, no makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked smaller than I remembered. Walt? Linda, can we talk? I set down the post hole digger. About what? About everything. About how sorry I am. About how I didn't know. Her voice broke. I didn't know about Violet. About the 2 years of planning. I thought I was helping Rose and Cole have a family. I thought it was a good thing. You knew about the will clause? Yes. You knew a biological child would be your descendant? Yes. You knew Cole wanted my land? She looked at the ground. I knew he talked about development opportunities. I didn't connect it all together. Not until the hearing. 6 weeks, Linda. You lived in his house for 6 weeks. You saw how obsessed he was with his property. You had to know. I wanted to believe him. She looked up at me, tears running down her face. I wanted to believe we were doing something good, that I was helping people, that it wasn't about money or land or betrayal. I wanted to believe it so badly that I ignored everything else. The sun was getting low. Golden light stretched across the fields. I could hear the Jorgensen kids' tractor in the distance. Why Cole? I asked. After all these years, why him? Linda wiped her face. Because he made me feel young again. Because he remembered who I was before I was just Walt Brennan's wife. Because he said things you stopped saying a long time ago. What things? That I was beautiful, that I mattered, that I was more than just someone's partner. She wrapped her arms around herself. I'm not blaming you. You're a good man, Walt. You always have been. But somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing each other. We just existed together. And when Cole came along and saw me, really saw me, I couldn't resist it, even though it meant destroying our marriage. I didn't think it would. I thought I could have both. I was wrong. We stood there in the fading light. The wind moved through the walnut trees. Somewhere a crow called. I'm divorcing you, I said. I already talked to a lawyer. She nodded. I know. I got the papers yesterday. You can have half the savings, half the house value if we sell it, but the 80 acres stays with me, non-negotiable. I don't want the land, Walt. I never did. Cole wanted it. I'm not Cole. She took a step closer. I made a terrible mistake. I hurt you. I hurt Rose. I hurt myself, but I never wanted your land. I just wanted to feel important again. By carrying your ex-boyfriend's baby. She flinched. Yes. The baby, I said. What happened? I lost it. 9 weeks. The doctor said it was stress. She laughed bitterly. Ironic, right? All of this, the planning, the betrayal, the destruction, and there's no baby anyway, just wreckage. The sun touched the horizon. The sky turned orange and pink, beautiful and empty. I should go, Linda said. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserve better. Yeah, I did. She walked to her car, stopped with her hand on the door. Walt, do you think you'll ever forgive me? I thought about it, about 6 years of marriage, about her holding my hand after heart surgery, about Sunday mornings and shared coffee, and the way she used to laugh at my bad jokes. Maybe, I said. Someday, but not today. She nodded, got in her car, drove away. I stood in the driveway until her taillights disappeared. Then I walked out to the 80 acres, to the oak sapling I'd planted on Carl's grave. It had new leaves, tiny green things, fragile but growing. I knelt down, touched the bark. I kept it, Carl. The land's safe. The wind rustled through the new leaves. It sounded like approval, or maybe just like wind. Maybe that was enough. 1 year later, I was on the tractor planting soybeans when Darius pulled up in his truck. May afternoon, warm sun on my neck, the smell of fresh-turned earth, rich and honest. He climbed out with 2 thermoses of coffee and sat on the tailgate while I finished the row. We didn't talk much, just drank coffee and watched the sun sink lower. The fields were green and healthy. The Jorgensen kid had done good work with the winter wheat. Now it was my turn again, working land I'd nearly lost. Heard Linda moved to Minneapolis, Darius said finally. Yeah, her sister's up there. You talked to her? Christmas. She sent a card. I looked at the coffee in my hands. Said she's working at a nonprofit, helping women in crisis. Trying to do some good, I guess. That's something. Yeah. We watched a robin building a nest in the empty hayloft. The barn needed paint, but it was still standing. Still mine. Cole's business went under, Darius said. Heard he moved to Arizona. Development job out there. Rose told me. She stops by sometimes, brings pie. We don't talk about much. Just sit. She doing okay? Better than she was. Says she's thinking about adopting. On her own this time. Darius nodded, drained his coffee. What about you? You doing okay? I looked at the 80 acres. At the walnut trees Carl planted 30 years ago. At the oak sapling on his grave. 4 feet tall now, leaves bright green in the evening light. Carl used to say land doesn't lie, I said. People do. Soil tests don't lie. Survey stakes don't lie. Property lines don't lie. I set down my thermos. He was right. All the truth was in the ground. I just had to dig for it. That's not what I asked. I smiled. I know. The sun touched the horizon, turned the clouds orange and gold. Somewhere in the distance, spring peepers started their evening song. The air smelled like lilac and diesel and warm soil. I'm not happy, Massa, I said, but I'm not lost either. I've got the land, got my health, got friends who showed up when it mattered. I looked at Darius. That's more than a lot of people have. It's enough? I thought about it, about Linda's empty chair at the kitchen table, about the quiet house and the long evenings alone, about the oak tree growing on Carl's grave, reaching toward a sky I wouldn't live to see it touch. It's close enough, I said. We sat until the stars came out. Then Darius drove home and I walked to the house. The porch light was on. I'd left it on myself this time. No one waiting inside. But the land was mine. The truth had held. And tomorrow I'd plant another row. That was enough. That was close enough.